Welcome Microgiants to another meeting. Today we're going to continue on with some of the marketing that we've done in the past, and we're here at the Edgar Studio, and so we're going to get started. I'll just kind of remind some of you a little bit about where we've been. We talked a little bit about the marketing process and what you actually go through when you get to the campaign development. And we've got a couple of videos on that, and you'll be able to go back and refer on the Microgiant YouTube channel and be able to pull that up, and we'll link it to the final screen in the show notes below, so that you'll be able to look at that. That would be a precedent to this particular one. That one leads into this, because it talks a little bit about what is the campaign, how do you develop it, and a lot of flow charts, pretty detailed kind of stuff. But then the question is, okay, you do it, you execute it, and you get all of your artwork done, and you place it with your media. Now what do you do? And of course, the answer is that you analyze it. And so what we're going to talk about is that analyzation phase. And then we'll chat a little bit about it. It will be a little bit shorter meeting today, but there may be more questions, so we'll kind of get started from there. The first thing is that, what do we want to analyze? And of course, the answer is there are 3 or 4 things that we want to know. And when we're building a marketing plan, remember we talked about having a very specific campaign, and that campaign itself has some very specific objectives and so forth. So in other words, what we want to do is we want to analyze the campaign and determine whether or not we've affected sales, because that's what we need in order to be able to have any profit. And so the first thing we really look at is sales. And we like to tie that into customer feedback or prospect feedback that has to do with several metrics. One of them would be, well, how many clicks did you have on the sales page? This is if you're doing actually online business. Or it might be how many people went to the telephone number to call you with an order, or maybe send out an email or do a chat. And then the next thing you want to look at is, well, okay, how many clicks and completions did we get on the payment form? And what that really tells us is that somebody came to the sales page, and we've gone through the process. And in some cases, you may have a multi-step process where you get them to point A, point B, and then you're finally ready to kind of ask, if you will, and make an offer. And then the question is, well, gee, if they decide to do it, then okay, great, that's wonderful. They fill out the form, they put in their credit card, they buy it. And now you've got a sales order effectively. So we want to know how many people completed that, how many people got there, how many people started it, and how many people completed it. Because you're going to have fall off. You always have fall off. And sometimes that's a lot of money. When you get into the sales process and you discover that you're having a 50% fall off, well, the issue is, well, why would that be? What objection have we not overcome in this process, and how can we overcome that? How can we anticipate the questions that they may have and make them feel a little bit better about the whole purchase and get that done? And then, of course, the last one is sort of the old-fashioned one, sort of in-store. A lot of people in the retail business really fail big time at this, and most business owners fail at this as well. And that is that somebody comes in, you're happy to see them, you have a conversation, you make a sale. This could be on the phone, could be in an office as well. You make a sale, and you're trying to complete that. You might have some deliverables, or you've got a purchase order and a signature and so forth, and you forget the last part. And the last part is, hey, how'd you hear about us? And it's amazing how little of that there is, and it has to be recorded. You've got to be able to record that and say, okay, so-and-so bought this, and they say that they saw our ad in the newspaper, or they say they found us on Google. They found us on Yelp, etc. That kind of thing. Now, if they found you online, you should be able to track that back, because you can track Yelp and you can see how many people come through Yelp, etc. And of course, nowadays, so many of these systems where you might be found will really give you feedback. So you compile that on a spreadsheet so that you can actually do something about it. So then the next process might be, okay, 2, how many closes per dollar across all your media did you really get? And all we're really doing is the same kind of analysis, but now we're putting the amount of money into the mix. How much did you pay for that? And that would include, what did it cost you to develop the message? Say if you're going to sell a special product, and you decided to promote that product, then you develop some artwork for that product. Keep track of those costs as well, because you really want to know the whole enchilada. What did we spend to develop it? A big problem that a lot of little companies make is they spend a huge amount of money on artwork and design work and developing the message, writing the copy, and that kind of stuff, and then they only spend $1,000 on the ad. You spent $10,000 developing this thing, and now you spend $1,000 on an ad. It's like, well, wait a minute, we'll keep it in perspective. And so you want to test that and see which ones of those work. Then you want to compare the revenue generated, from the customer's first purchase, if you can. That's sort of like one thing, but don't forget, there's a lifetime value of a customer. And so as you go down the road, what is your repetitive business going to be? Some businesses only have one customer, and once they sell that, they're never going to be a customer again. Let's see, I was thinking of a business just the other day where I hired somebody to come in and do something at my house. I'm sorry, I can't remember what it was, but it was a one-time deal. I'm not going to ever buy that again. And so this poor guy, well, it's like a tree trimmer or something. If you've only got one tree and you cut that tree down, it's like, it's going to be a long time before you need another tree trimmer. Well, so, the question then is, well, that particular company cares about somebody who has a lot of trees. They'll come in there, they'll do one tree for you, but they know that they're done. So, but there are some businesses where you only buy it one time, like a solar panel array on your house. You buy it once, you're not going to be a customer again. Maybe service, but not in terms of brand new stuff. So the amount of money and investment per customer is quite different in that scenario than it is if you've got repetitive business over and over and over again. And so the amount of money you spend for the single customer has to be a lot less. And it generally means you have to have a lot more customers in order to make that work. You just buy it one time, and that's it. And then the lifetime value of a customer is really kind of interesting. If somebody buys something on a regular basis, then that accumulates over time, and you can actually take a look at your investment in the customer and then determine what that future cash flow is going to be. And it can seem like, why waste the time? But I have one client where the purchase is $15, $20 a week. Not a lot of money, but the lifetime value will be in the $10,000 to $20,000 range per customer. So that gives you a whole different perspective on what you're going to do for a customer and how much you'll spend to get that customer. How much customer service will you be able to provide if they have a long lead time or a post time, follow-up? They're with you for years and years and years. And then finally, the third is attempt to take a look at the brand level results. So when we talk about brand, we're talking about generic advertising that sells the name of the business or the name of a product that you're trying to sell, or otherwise something that's not a specific product that you are spending time, effort, and money on in order to try to generally attract business or create an image, etc. We'll talk a lot more about brand development as we go into this next whole series and uncreative. But it just happens that there are a lot of things that you can spend advertising on, and some of it is justified in terms of simply keeping your name out there. How much, and that's gone down a lot. It used to be that the branding was an excuse for salespeople to sell you something.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the radio guy comes in, well, you got to keep your name in front of everybody. And so, oh yeah, you're probably right. Sales have been down. How much? And then that's where you go. And they're going, it's just branding. Therefore, they don't have to come back in and justify anything.
It's a saying, or not a saying, I guess, a way of thinking where culturally we say it's like we have advertisement versus marketing. I think we talked about this before.
We have, yeah.
And it's mostly marketing, advertisement that people are familiar with, not really knowing where is that this actual customers are coming from. Just advertise everywhere.
That's right.
As many flyers, and hopefully something lands.
Right. Well, and that has a lot to do with the discussions we've had about finding your niche and creating your own spot there. It's like, if you develop your niche, then why are you advertising outside of your niche? And of course, the tendency is, I want to, we got X amount of volume and I want to grow that a little bit. And so now let's geographically stretch out into a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger geography. Okay, but the thing that's interesting is that as the geography gets bigger and bigger and bigger, it becomes incredibly bigger faster, because the geography is going up exponentially as you reach out and you reach out and you reach out. At what point does your advertising no longer make any sense? And we've talked about that from a customer analysis standpoint, like the termite guy that I mentioned. Yeah. And they have business way out, close to Los Angeles and a whole bunch up in the mountains. And it's sort of like, gee, why are you doing that? But you could ask another question, and that is, why are you advertising way out in the boondocks? Because you've got 3 customers there. And why don't you focus on getting more business where you are? Because if you get more business where you are in, say, a smaller geography, then you have a deeper penetration of your market. It becomes more meaningful, and you tend to be able to increase your margins on that particular business, because you're not spending new money to create another market. Mm-hmm. So you have to think of it in terms of, we're just creating another market and we're spending a lot of money to do that. It's like, stay in your niche. So you can look at your website views, and you should look at your website views in order to be able to determine, what's going on. What are the keywords, the search terms that people are using? John and I were in a meeting this morning where we looked at a report on website keywords. And, as everybody would present a report like that, if you're creating the report, you're going to say, take a look at all of these where we've done really, really well. That's great. Take a look at all of these people are coming in based on this keyword or based on this keyword. And you go, gee, that's really great. The question is, but does that keyword matter? Who cares? If this, somebody picks up bananas and you got a whole lot of people responding to bananas for some reason because you got a crazy article on bananas, or a long long keyword or key phrase, really long tail. You have 6 or 7 words, and you get a few people who happen to type that exact phrase in, and then you get a bunch of traffic on that particular keyword. But if it's got nothing to do with selling anything.
So an example would be for restaurants. I try to find high traffic areas that have nothing to do with the restaurant, like let's just say a convention center next to it. People are always searching for the convention center. Yeah. So the theory was like, hopefully that if they're searching for the convention center and we say we're right next to the convention center, those keywords might eventually also generate the restaurant that's next to the convention center.
Yeah.
Now, because it's a food, that's a little easier, because like, all right, fine. Like, I'm searching for the convention center, but there's a restaurant right next to it. That hopefully makes sense, even though the word had nothing to do with it. Is that a good use of the?
Well, again, yeah, it's about money. How much time and effort did you spend trying to think that through and putting that in there, and then how many clicks did you receive? So, if you build a plan and you say, okay, we're going to do a little bit of this, sort of branding stuff, and we want to try to attract people at the convention to come over, a half a block or a block away to come to the restaurant, and therefore we're going to attempt to do that. Well, and how do you do that? Well, the answer, of course, is you have to have some sort of a page about conventions. How else are you going to get any traffic? So Google's not going to recognize you at all based on location. If they put in Ontario Convention Center, unless you have Ontario Convention Center somewhere in the website, you are not going to be able to get anything.
I've done it on Facebook pages, which is attached to SEO, and I put in the comments written, this restaurant is right next to the convention center. And an example, and it actually pops up. I was like, oh, cool, at least the Facebook page is popping up with that keyword.
Yeah.
And so that was.
But have you gotten any clicks from that?
I don't have the ability to measure that yet. I don't have the full volume.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah, I got a lot of landing. I got the ability to measure how many people landed from the commercial to the landing page.
From the commercial itself.
From the commercial itself.
Right.
But not from the keyword.
Yeah, right.
So that's almost like throwing out there and guess. Hopefully it works. So that is in a sense a little bit of like.
So, I mean, what you're doing there is a little bit by association, and it's not necessarily a keyword. I'm not sure if you'd put that in the same category.
Okay.
And, it's like, so what? Yeah, put it in. Somebody reads it. The problem, of course, is that you're typing that in, and that's only good for a few days. Because I think the last time John went through and calculated it, which is worse now. I think only 1/7 of the people who are connected to you or a friend are actually seeing your particular comment, and so that's because there's so many of them, and so you've already degraded your effort, by 6/7 for starters, and so now for the 1/7 who did see it. And those 3 people who go, oh, it's right next to the convention center. Okay, I'll store that for when I'm out there next week. And then they can't remember the name and they can't remember how they got there. I mean, maybe it did some good, but the time it took to type it in is probably not worth the one customer who showed up, who maybe didn't buy or maybe did buy. So that's why you've got to be so careful about where you spend your time, because you want to keep funneling the dollars into the ones where you're getting real return.
So another try we're manipulating or changing is how for that same issue. Yeah, we got people to land on the page. We got 500 people to click on the link. Out of 5,000 people that saw the commercial. That's
okay. That's really good.
2,000 people stayed longer than 8 seconds.
Right.
So now how I can measure that, but now we're like to the next level. It's like, where can we? 3 people landed, 500 people landed on the page. Now how can we prove that they went to the restaurant?
Well, right.
That's our next step.
And that is where you have to sort of transfer, and communicate back and forth between the media and your website, and that's a little bit more difficult to do. I'm doing an analysis tomorrow. Actually, I'm not doing it. I'm observing an analysis tomorrow, where they claim to be able to tell you exactly what traffic came to your website based on radio advertising. And I'm going, okay, I got to see this to believe it, And I think what's going to happen is that they're going to say, what we do is we have a software that coordinates the exact time of the ad. So the radio station submits the ad drop time or air time, and so they take that time and then they give it a certain amount of 30 seconds, a minute, or whatever they just. And then they say, well, here's what your traffic did immediately after each one of these ads. Okay, so we'll do that. The problem is these guys have 30,000 people a day on the website.
That's going to be hard.
So where's the blip? Could you tell that that blip really was,
Yeah.
you know, at 107 instead of, you know?
So here's another thing that we're working on. We stepped away from coupons. I'm gonna try something new, which is gonna be reward points or a gift card. The good thing about the gift card is they can get the gift card if they do one of two things. They give me the phone number and their name. $5 gift card.
Yeah.
So if they use the gift card, then we know it was actually they went in. So
Yeah.
that's one. Another thing that we're trying to do to measure is we know people go because they come back and leave comments that I went there.
Right. Yeah.
Didn't like it.
Yeah.
So there's a possibility of giving somebody a reward to give a comment.
Yeah.
And rewards based on reward points or gift card.
And that's
our next round.
Those are great ideas.
Mhm.
And, you know, loyalty programs, I think, are in a way, they're sort of like the future
Okay.
of customer relationship development. And the problem is that trying to figure out which one actually works and is a little bit unique, and which people care about it. And of course, that goes back to customer profile.
Mhm.
And we talked an awful lot about that. And so some customers care and some don't. You know, I don't care. You know, I could go into a coffee shop and buy the same coffee over and over and over and over again. And if they give me a little coffee thing, I just go, nah, I don't want to even carry it in my billfold. I don't care. Discounting my coffee, say 8%, is not enough for me to garbage up my billfold.
So
It just is not.
the way that we have it, and we piloted last week. We're giving away for spending $100, I'm giving them $5.
Mhm.
So hopefully it's worth it because our average ticket is $15. So 2 visits later, they
Yeah.
have $1 to spend,
Yeah,
and phone number is all we need, nothing else, and your name.
yeah.
And so
Well, and I think
that's
I think that's fine. And having said what I just said about myself, I'm not necessarily a typical customer
Mhm.
because, you know, there are a whole lot of customers, especially in this economy, who care a lot about that. I'm just fortunate to not have to worry too much
Mhm.
about, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, I don't even like to put change in my pocket anymore. You know, I mean, because it costs me more in worn out, you know, pockets.
and cell phone screen scratches and things like that.
Yeah, and cell phone scratch. So I mean, you know, different profiles have different attitudes about that. So you learn the profile of your customers, and then you apply the royalty or the loyalty program that, you know, that works best for that particular group
Mhm.
of customers, and then you measure it. And the whole point of this discussion really is to say, measure, measure, measure,
Mhm.
measure. You analyze where you did well and you analyze where you didn't do so well. And then you put it against dollars. You literally create a little return on investment for, you know, each media, each message. And then when you do that, then that helps you understand where you need to go next. Stop doing the ones that you are not working. Let's say, in fact, here we are. Yeah. Stop doing the ones where they're not working, and spend more time on the ones that are working. And that's really, I think, the lesson here. And so it's not as though the analyzation in terms of building the reports can be quite gnarly. So for me to just state them here is really simple.
Mhm.
And that's why it's kind of real, you know, very simple, because, you know, without looking at each one of these reports and build, but you know how gnarly they can be,
Mhm.
to be able to look at them and understand them, and do you have the right period of time, and, you know, and if you don't set up the campaign, you don't even know what you're looking at, because you need to have campaigns that are broken apart. So if you're trying to sell a special milkshake that you came up with, which is different and unique, and that's going to be what gets people to come in, and say you give them 50% off, or you know, a free one with every purchase. So you get one and your friend gets a free one. And then that particular idea is to get people into the restaurant. You give it to them, you keep track of that, you try to do something to figure out who they are to match your program. But then, you know, you build that all encapsulated, everything you do around that, whether it would be a little ad and the way you do your advertising, is a wonderful way to promote that kind of a thing, you know, with a rotating,
Yeah,
you know,
360.
beverage and that, you know, that kind of stuff. And, you know, that makes a lot of sense, and it becomes very appealing. And now all you have to do is get the right incentive to get out of their chair, and when they're driving by, stop and go in and get them. So, but it doesn't work if it's just you're looking at every campaign you did. You got to isolate the campaign and find out if that campaign worked.
If I could share something real fast, is we tried all different type of videos, but it was not the one that had no message in the video that got the most clicks and views.
Yeah.
Before we were promoting coupons, we were promoting a grand opening, we're promoting something. But the one video that did the best is where every 3 seconds we changed the image. Every 3 seconds we changed the image, and we never told an actual message other than click the button so you learn what this video is about.
Yeah, right. And how many different videos?
I tried.
I mean, did you go through like a series of 3 and did it repeat at that point?
So I tried, we were doing Facebook and Instagram. So my analysis only works for Facebook and Instagram. I can't talk for anything else. We did a video that was the food spitting by itself. We lost people at 3 seconds.
Yeah.
It was a minute long. We cut it down 30 seconds. We were never able to retain somebody for 30 seconds. It was like maybe 2% of people. Then we cut it down to 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And then after going to 15 seconds, we did a coupon. Coupon only lasted, people only stayed 3 seconds. We did an incentive. Whatever we did, nobody would stay to watch the full 15-second video. So it was like 2-3-5% of people. Right. Not until all I did is, okay, I'm not going to tell you what I'm selling. I'm just going to tell you your city, where you're located, and it's food, and it looks really good, right? 1, 2, 3, in 8 seconds, we deliver those messages. The rest of the seconds, we kind of like almost repeated it again. Yeah. Kind of what we showed them. And that's when we started noticing finally people were not only staying, were watching, but actually pressing the button.
And so it's the image, it's the change in the image that is attracting people.
They're like, what's, and my theory is this, and I can't prove it yet, but I don't know if there's a way to prove it, is they have a choice to skip the video, right? Rewind the video to see where the location was, where the city it was, or what they're selling. Yeah. Or they could press the button to make it easier for them. So my assumption was they don't want to skip it because they have curiosity. They don't want to pause it because it takes a lot more work to go through the buttons and trying to figure it out the second they talked about the city. Yeah. So their only option was to press the button. Right. So that's kind of how
So they'll do that 2 or 3 times till they figure out what you're doing.
And finally they press the button. And so I got my 100% increase of them pressing the button when I do that video. And I put them side to side, same campaign, same people.
And that is an unbelievable improvement. I mean, to be able to double your response.
It was an accident too, and I found it as an accident. I had to do a quick video for a customer, look flashy and cool.
But you know, fortunately, you thought to do that. Yeah. But very few people do. They just go, "Oh, I spent the money," and they leave it to their advertiser and expert. And you know, how's business? Well, it seemed to be okay. Oh, that advertising's sure working. It's like, well, no. You got to look at the individual pieces and find out which pieces are working. So you're going to do more of that. You've made the corrections. And that's really all we're saying here is pay attention to the data and let the data lead you to where your campaign is going to go.
And here's my favorite part is we built a campaign in Facebook ad manager where they have this section called ad sets. So all the parameters are exactly the same. And we let Facebook choose who to show the video to based on response. Yeah. So I threw 3 videos, all different strategies, coupon, likes, clicks, like I had all different type of strategies. Yeah. And after having 3 videos in the same ad campaign, the tactic that I keep using with the 3-second one happens to be always the winner by far when it comes to clicks, views, and reactions. Okay. Good. So I'm like, okay, well, I think it has something to do with that. I haven't figured out what it is, but I'm theorizing.
You're really on new ground in a way, especially for your particular market. You're new ground. They're not doing that kind of thing, and the so-called media experts, you know, the big radio stations, the TV stations that have now started selling, you know, all manner of digital, you know, as if they knew what it was about, and that rarely is the case. You know, but that little market that you discovered is probably not really known, but in a way, it doesn't matter, because every one of them will be different based on the profile, the kind of businesses and the profile of their market niche customers. So you see, the reason marketing works is because you pay attention to those 3 or 4 little elements. And if you don't pay attention to that, you're wasting money. And the ones who waste money simply don't get as much new business as the ones who don't waste money. And it's kind of, it's kind of weird that, it has to do with those who are efficient in terms of getting their story out, that really succeed and eventually beat up the other guys. And we've talked about the PIMS principles. That's been a while, but if you're delivering quality and as you raise your market share, your margins go up, you have more cash to spend, and you drive your competitors out of business. And that's kind of the way it works. And it has to do with paying attention to where you spend your money and how much money comes back. So you go through, you do this analysis, you look at the data, you get to go past go, and you get to start all over again. And so, we've gone around this marketing cycle here. It took us, 2 years or so, but we've gone around this along with a few other subjects, and so now we're finally back.
Yeah.
And so now you just start over.
I love this cycle, by the way. I go back and look at it every so often. I don't know if you have a bigger picture of that, but that cycle
sure.
is...
Do I have a lot of bigger pictures. But you mean like to show right now?
Yeah, if you have more slides, no, continue. But
yeah, I don't know. I think I do. I'm sure I do, just to have it up here.
There it is.
This is the one that
That's
has
the one.
all the pieces as you're developing it.
So,
yeah.
Every so often I'm like, okay, let me go back and look and see what I'm doing wrong when it comes to my marketing campaigns and everything.
Right.
So,
Good. Well, that's the whole idea. And so now we skipped over the creative process and some of the specific targeting and the creative. So what we're going to do is go into a series of some specific examples now. It's like, okay, now we've heard all the theory and the processes and that sort of stuff, but now I need a couple of examples to figure out how to do it. So that's where we'll go.
Awesome.
So John and JP, I want to invite you guys to jump in on this discussion here. We've got a few more minutes that we can chat and just kind of discuss this whole idea of analysis and getting all the way around the circle.
Of course. Well, to kick things off for me, I think this is new territory for me that I need to enter upon myself. I've been launching a website and direct e-commerce initiatives, and I have to say I'm still looking to learn more about who my customers are and how they're finding me. I have a website, I have a presence on Amazon Handmade, and Amazon is very much an ad-driven model, which, at that point in time when you're doing digital ads, it helps to know who your customers are.
Yes, it does.
In a past venture I had, I think I've talked about it from time to time in our conversations. We didn't really have a very targeted idea of who our customers really were. And so we went in, we had a huge budget for digital ad spend. And, at that point, it's a little bit like boiling the ocean. So, this kind of, and, it's not exactly a whole lot that we got out of it. So, it all that is to say, the ability to find out who your customers are, especially if you're looking to do business online, is really important. And it's not quite as easy as just saying, give me customers in, Redlands, California or whatnot,
Yeah. Of course, and that's a solution. That's how you can do it. But on the other hand, if you miss your targeting on a pretty frequent basis, spend a lot of money doing it, and you don't end up with enough data to be able to determine where you're successful. And of course, what that then says is, wait a minute, we got to get back in the loop here and start doing some other kinds of testing in order to determine really who resonates with this particular product. You can start very simply by getting a few friends together, having your own focus group, bring a few products in, asking some questions, and then get some feedback. It's like, okay, how did you like this? Did you use it? give out samples to people, have them fill out a survey online, 3 weeks later or something like that, so that you can get some feedback. And then because you know who they are, and at least generally who the profile of those people are, then you can begin to extrapolate a little bit and go, okay, my customer is a female between 45 and 60. That's going to be the Pareto principle. That's going to be 80% of my business, I think. And so now you can begin to look at, well, what media do they respond to? How much time do they spend on Facebook? Where should I spend most of my time and effort? And let's build the message so that it appeals to women in that category, as opposed to, hey, try this, you'll like it. Not everybody's going to like it because it's a niche product. In your case, you're going to have a lot of local interest because it's a localized product. You're going to have people who like natural products, who are into local and sustainability. That's kind of all part of that genre. And so, you ask, if you don't know these folks very well, you ask them to fill out a questionnaire about their attitudes and their awareness of products that are made from local raw materials. If that has anything to do with their decisions, or does it mean nothing? Try and determine what they think about their own spending habits. Will they spend a little bit more money to get something that is sort of a little closer to the farm, a little closer to the factory? Will they spend more money on products that are made in small batches? We're doing a whole campaign right now for the dairy on small batch brewed tea. And you go, okay, fine, why small batch? Well, the reason is it's a craft brewed thing, and it's local, and people want to know that they're buying something local, that it's a small process, it's a hands-on deal. I mean, why did craft brewing end up being so great? Well, you have to like the taste, of course, but craft brewing is something that people appreciate because they like something that's local, that's different, there's variety, and they appreciate that they're supporting local business folks. So, I mean, those are the kind of questions you ask, and then you target that a little bit better so that when you do your next round, you might be able to test that particular target a little bit better and see if that works.
Certainly.
Yeah.
I confess I probably don't even know myself, where I can find that information on visits to my website, and I think I'm going to have to go and do some research. But I wonder if we can sort of extrapolate this a bit further, in that, once we've determined who our target demographic is. I attended a talk recently that talked about building a story brand. And so when you advertise and you market to your target customer, you want to know, what sort of music do they like? What sort of art do they like? What sort of things do they consume?
Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of curious, how do you take that next step? So great, I know women in Southern California between 45 and 60 with a taste for gardening and sustainability and an active lifestyle, like my product. So, how do I figure out what music to put on my my advertisements, or what colors to use, or
Yeah. Well, that's all real. That's all important. You do have to project maybe a touch more than that. I mean, it's not, you get into the creative side, it's not all strict analysis. Once you've got you want the analytical stuff to be there too. Absolutely, you want that to be there. But by the same token, it's not so much what that, say, 45 to 60-year-old female, we'll say in Southern California, it's not so much what they like. It's really, how do they perceive themselves, and how does your product enhance that perception? So it is a little bit more, a little deeper. You have to switch off your data hat and kind of go, okay, given these people and their personalities, I need to study these folks now and figure out who they are and what they think about themselves. And there is data available. Unfortunately, for small businesses, it can be expensive, but you can get from Experian, for example, you could ask them for attributes, like we said, plus you'd say, I want people who are green, as opposed to brown. In other words, environmental sensitivity versus anti-environmental sensitivity, and there are both, believe it or not. And I want someone who understands sustainability and who likes to buy local products. And then they would actually go through and they could give you a list of people within a geographic area that meet that criteria. Now, to a degree, Facebook can do that too. And you've done some of that, haven't you?
I was going to jump on there. I think right now, I know there's other social medias like TikTok and all that kind of stuff, but I noticed that the people that have the money, the age group that I'm looking for personally that goes to a restaurant, still kicking it at Facebook and Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And their advertisement is pretty affordable. And if you tell them, if you want to do some analysis yourself and say, I want to throw a commercial that only targets women, this age group, blah, blah, you still have a lot of parameters you can play with.
Yeah.
And very affordable. I think the minimum budget you can set up for a ad set is $1. I do it per campaign, but it's $1 per day.
Yeah.
And so if you dump multiple videos in there, ad commercials, whatever you want to do, it's a good testing place, in my opinion.
No, it's an excellent, I mean, nowadays you can test with the actual product, and that's terrific. Now, however, JP is going to have a little bit of a different problem because he's selling to retailers for the most part. And so you have to send them to a retailer, and it's like, well, okay, did our ad, now we're back into branding. Did my ad, which was very specific to a customer, actually produce any money? And I suppose the answer to that is you're going to have to set up a little mail order system or an online system in order to test that.
Could be an idea as well as maybe choosing a retailer that you think might be the right retailer, do a commercial in a 5-mile radius from that retailer, basically to see how many people would be interested in your product by clicking, watch time, clicks to your website. You could add a tracker like Soho Tracker, where it allows you to see the person where they landed on your page, where they came from, all that good stuff. You can even chat with them, say, hey, where you find us. But that would give you a lot of data to go into the retailer and say, hey, I'm able to get all this attention on my own to my website, which is a retail place. I could probably, and this is a 5-mile radius from your location, and only costs you maybe 3 months at $1 a piece. Whatever designer you need to contract, it might be a good way to.
And so
I don't know, just throwing that out
and
there.
sort of testing that. And then so what you do is you go through cycles, and the simplest way is to say, okay, I'm going to target this particular group. I'm going to build my creative, my ad, get that all done, spend a small amount of money. And then you make sure you remember that was target number one, and here are all the characteristics, and here is my response. And then you could go do women from 65 to 90 or whatever, and then that's target number two. And literally you could figure out where your business was based on the responses, although you're not testing the creativity in each profile. Ideally, you would test your different creative by profile and see which one worked. And then you would test the same creative by another profile and see how that one worked. And then you'd end up being able to triangulate this thing down so that it does turn into data. And fortunately, the kind of stuff that Edgar's talking about is so affordable that you can actually test real time with this stuff. I mean, it's really incredible. And therefore, people are learning how to spend their money a whole lot better than they did in the past. But this is still new. The kind of stuff Edgar's doing is not being done by very many businesses. And this is a good opportunity to learn how to do this and get in front of it before everybody else does.
Certainly.
Yeah. So, okay, John.
Yeah, I couldn't be any more in agreement with you. And I'm thinking back over the times that I've looked at and evaluated how do we change our marketing strategy, how do we get new clients, and the thing that came to me is that it is a never-ending job because the times change, the economy change, the desires of the new generation change. And so it really, every couple of years, I think whether you think you've got it down or not, you've got to go through that cycle to go through it. Couldn't
Right.
help but think back on, we're talking about how do we gain customers and how do we define the demographic share and how do we attune to be right on track with that, or if it's multiple streams. The other thing that comes to mind is how do we know why people leave us? And so the flip side is you got people falling off the edge of the cliff, hopefully at a very low rate, but they do stop becoming customers. Maybe they still come in once in a while, but least offered, or maybe they're just gone for a bit of time. And I'm encouraged to think about maybe some good analytics to figure out what causes people to stop working with you.
Right.
Is there anything you can do by very, very low cost of offering the services they already know to help keep them attached in some way? So
Yeah.
that was,
That we normally talk about that sort of in the customer section, but it really applies in this analytical section too. You're right. And of course, the answer is you utilize all of the different feedback mechanisms, customer feedback loops is what I call them, so that you're accumulating data on a somewhat of a continuous basis. So for the dairy, we not only ask customers what they like and dislike and that kind of thing on a really regular basis, as I think you guys know, but in addition to that, we've gone through several years of looking at exit surveys where we're asking the customers who leave. Now this is a subscription service, and so we know when they start and when they end. So the question is, if they just come into the restaurant every once in a while and 2 years later they haven't been there, did you know that they left? So I mean, you've got those issues to deal with too. But what we found out was incredible. It's like, well, they left because they felt like it was too expensive. They left because there was a quality issue. Fortunately, that was almost never, which was, that's what they build their business on. They left because they're moving. And it's like, oh my gosh, I mean, that's not our fault. They moved outside of our area, and and they're saying, oh, we wish we could take you with us. So it's sort of like, well, you can't help that. I mean, that's no fault of your own when somebody moves across the country and you can't deliver your product to them anymore. So I mean, but those are the kinds of things. Now, the interesting thing is that they also have a very robust customer service desk. I think there are 8 or 9 people in that department now. And a long time ago, we set it up so that every conversation would be typed in and tied to the customer. And so we can tell when somebody was mad, when we screwed up, how did we fix it? What did we give them in return? Has this customer ended up being a very dissatisfied customer over time? At some point you go, we can't satisfy this customer. We don't have it. There's just not a good fit here. And so we compare the exit surveys with the customer surveys, which is perpetual. And we discovered that, boy, they pretty much tell you the same thing on both sides. They'll call up and say, this is the second time that the milk was sour. Okay, was it or was it not? We don't know. Was it the bottle that was in there for 4 weeks and you drank the fresh stuff instead? It's kind of hard to tell. However, it just kept occurring. So what's going on with this customer? Sorry, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to take care of you. We've tried. We've given you, free product over and over and over again. It's starting to feel like you're taking advantage of us. We don't say that, of course, but I mean, that happens. You all know the story about the older man who came in and brought a couple of tires into Nordstrom's and said, I got to return these tires. My wife bought the wrong size. And they said, sir, we're a clothing store. We don't sell tires. No. My wife insisted that she bought them here. She did buy them here. I'm here to return them. I've rolled them in from the car, off the, in through the parking lot, And I am not rolling those things back just because, I want a refund. So how do they make the decision? They take a look, here's Mr. Johnson. Oh, Mrs. Johnson spends $20,000 a year here. Give him a refund.
Mm.
They didn't sell the tires. Give him the money. We'll make him happy. He's still a customer. She's still a customer, and everybody's happy. It's like, but they wouldn't have done that for somebody who'd been in the store once. That story makes the headlines. I mean, that becomes mythological, but they didn't do that in a vacuum. They did that based on the value of the individual customer. When you can get to that point, it helps you make those decisions.
And I'm wondering whether that kind of service has kind of gone now, and a little bit. I mean, Amazon does replace a lot of stuff that you send back after whatever the time frame is, but I'm sure they keep account of what they've replaced back.
You bet they do.
I remember a time in the Midwest, a long time ago, I had one pair of shoes, and I bought them from a high-end store, LS Airs. It was a reasonable store, and I wore them out. I literally wore them out in a period of, 6 months, walking in the snow. And I went in there and I said, look, is there anything you guys can do to help? And they just looked at me and looked at the shoes. Said, yes, sir, we'll replace them. And they just replaced the shoes. And I'm like, and I tell the story now because I continued to buy product from them because I felt like they took care of business. I didn't want to abuse it.
Yeah. Well, see, fortunately, you didn't abuse it. Had you abused it, they would have taken note of that eventually and said, you know what, we've replaced these things 5 times. I mean, how many years do we have to keep giving you some shoes?
But I think it begs the question that part of it is obviously getting the client in through the door and making sure we tell the right story for the right reason and presenting it in such a way that people understand it. And then when the client shows up, what we've talked about is actually reflected in how we deliver. I mean, that's actually very comforting, I think. Yeah. And then after that, how do we, continue to be alongside the client? And that's a difficult process because, everybody loves gaining new business. Quite often, you don't necessarily like keeping it, but that's part of what we're in here for. We've got to take care of those people who are already in relationship with us.
Yeah, and of course the reason that we talk about keeping track of all this information at the customer level is so you can determine what the profitability per customer is. You can afford to give back X amount of stuff. When you do something wrong, you got to fix it just because the moral issues. But if they continue to abuse you, and they do, I mean, I can tell you for sure. Having a lot of retail stores, customers do abuse you if you allow them to, and you have to be very nice and kind to them and say, gee, I'm really sorry, but you did this and you did this, and John, we gave you 2 pairs of shoes, you're wearing them in the snow, you got leather soles, this is not, you got to put rubbers on them or whatever, but at some point they're just going to say, God love you, but we can't give you any more shoes. Because the profit that we made on your previous 10 items has been wiped out on the last 4 pairs of shoes we gave you, and you're no longer a profitable customer. It has to go both ways. They got to make some money on the customer. Customer can't abuse it, and the customer has to be happy with what they get for the value. Yeah, all those ways. So, well, this has been a really great discussion. Thanks a lot, guys, for participating, and good panel. And that closes out our sort of long journey around the marketing cycle. So we'll jump into some creative stuff in the next few meetings. So see you in a couple weeks. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks, Ron.
Take care.
Bye.